Let's talk about the plant kingdom. You know, it's massive, it's super important, and let's be honest, it can be kind of overwhelming to get your head around. But what if I told you we could unlock its entire evolutionary story just by looking at 5 major breakthroughs? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do.
So where do you even start? I mean, how do scientists possibly make sense of millions of different plant species? From the tiniest little moss on a rock to the giant redwood trees. Well, it all comes down to how plants solved the biggest problems life threw at them. First in the water, and then, the big one, on land.
And that journey gives us this awesome evolutionary ladder that we're going to climb together, step by step. We'll kick things off with algae and their watery origins. Then we'll meet the bryophytes, the very first pioneers on land. After that, we'll see how pteridophytes built the plumbing. Then we'll get into the gymnosperms and their game-changing superpower. And finally, we'll see how the angiosperms took all of that and achieved total world domination.
All right, let's dive in. Every good story has a beginning, and for plants, that beginning was in the water. Long before there were forests or flowers, there was the original aqua squad. This first group is algae, and the key thing to know about them is just how simple they are. They don't have any of the stuff we normally think of when we picture a plant. No roots, no stems, no leaves, none of it. Their whole body is just this one simple structure called a thallus.
So naturally, their home is the water, but they come in all shapes and sizes, from tiny green algae all the way up to those huge underwater forests of kelp. That's a type of brown algae. And, oh yeah, you've definitely eaten them, probably without even realizing it. You know that dark wrapper on your sushi? Yep, that's a type of red algae.
Now, they might be simple, but their impact is, well, it's monumental. We always give credit to the rainforests, right? But algae are the planet's real lungs. They produce about 70% of the Earth's oxygen. We literally owe every breath we take to them. Just incredible. So, what's the big takeaway for algae? It's all about that simple body structure. And here's a little trick to help you remember that word, thallus. Just think, algae or thalluses? It's ridiculous, I know, but trust me, it works.
So for millions of years, life was basically one big pool party. But eventually, one group of plants did something incredibly brave. They took the first, really risky steps onto dry land. Say hello to the moss bosses.
Our next group is the bryophytes. And I absolutely love this description of them, the amphibians of the plant world. It's perfect. Just like a frog, they can survive on land, but they are still completely dependent on water, especially when it's time to reproduce. And their whole structure explains why they're so tied to the water. See, they don't have real roots, just these tiny little anchors called rhizoids. But their number one biggest problem, their biggest limitation, is that they have no vascular system, no internal plumbing to move water around. And without that plumbing, they can't grow tall. It forces them to stay low to the ground, always in damp, shady spots.
So if our algae are thalluses, the way to remember this group is just to think bryophyte, cry for water. They needed to live, and they desperately needed to make more bryophyte.
Okay, so not being able to move water around was a huge bottleneck in plant evolution. Solving that problem was the next great leap. It wasn't just a step, it was a total revolution. It was the invention of plumbing.
And right here, you're looking at the Great Divide in the history of plants. On one side, you've got the bryophytes, stuck close to the ground, no plumbing. On the other side, our next group, the pteridophytes. They evolved the very first vascular system, these tubes called xylem and phloem, to suck water up from the ground and send sugars down from the leaves. This one innovation, it changed absolutely everything.
So let's properly meet the inventors of this amazing plumbing, the pteridophytes, who I like to call the Fern Fan Club. With a vascular system, they could finally pull water up from the soil, which meant they could grow tall and truly start to conquer the land, spreading far away from the water's edge.
But they still had a secret. They didn't have seeds or flowers yet. Instead, they reproduced with these tiny hidden spores. Seriously, when you see a fern, you should basically be hearing the Jurassic Park theme song in your head, because these guys were the kings of the landscape for millions of years.
Look, having plumbing was a total game changer, but reproducing with spores was still kind of a gamble. The next innovation, though, this was an absolute superpower. This was the seed.
Meet the gymnosperms, aka the Naked Seed Squad.
They came up with this brilliant little survival package for their offspring. It's got a baby plant, a packed lunch, and a tough protective coat all in one. Now, the naked part just means the seed isn't covered up by a fruit. Think about a pine cone. You can see the seeds just sitting there right on the scales, out in the open.
This tough little seed package allowed them to move into much harsher places, colder, drier, like up on mountainsides. And was this a successful strategy? Well, their claim to fame is that this group includes the tallest living things on the entire planet, the giant redwoods. So yeah, I'd say it worked out.
So how on earth do you remember a weird name like gymnosperm? It's easy. Gymno sounds like gym, right? So just picture their seeds dressed for the gym. They're exposed, they're functional, not all covered up in a fancy outfit like a fruit.
The seed was a masterstroke, no doubt. But there was one final innovation, one last twist that would allow a single group to not just survive, but to achieve total, complete, global domination. It was time to add some serious style. The fruit fashionistas were about to arrive.
And here they are, the angiosperms. They took the awesome seed idea and gave it two revolutionary upgrades. First, they enclosed the seed inside a protective ovary, which then turns into a fruit. And second, they developed flowers. These bright, colorful, flashy advertisements designed to hire animals to do their pollination for them. It was a genius business move, creating this partnership with insects and birds that basically outsourced all the hard work.
And just how successful was this strategy of flowers and fruit? Well, the numbers speak for themselves. A staggering 80%, 80 of all known plant species on Earth today are angiosperms. This wasn't just another evolutionary step. This was a recipe for a complete planetary takeover.
Okay, wow. That was a whirlwind tour through 500 million years of evolution. So let's slow down for a second and put it all together with a quick cheat sheet, just to make sure it all clicks into place. You can see the whole story laid out right here. It's just such a clear, logical progression. See the pattern? You start with no plumbing and no seeds. Then bam, plumbing arrives. Then bam, the seed is invented. And for the grand finale, you wrap that seed up in a delicious fruit. Each step is just a brilliant solution to a really big problem.
And if you ever need to remember the order of that evolutionary ladder we just climbed, don't worry, I got you. Here's the ultimate mnemonic. A big panda grows apples. Algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms. Simple. You'll never forget it now.
So from simple aquatic life to the incredibly complex flowering plants that shape our entire world, the story of plants is just this amazing tale of innovation. They solved water, they solved height, they solved reproduction. Which, it leaves you with one really fascinating question. After conquering the whole planet with flowers and fruit, what could possibly be next?